work is we're all going to go around and share our process like a round robin. And so to start off, I made a lot of big sculptures, and in the past I've done I think a couple workshops on the GACA demo talking about how I follow my work and how I shape my work. And so today I thought I would share something a little different, and I'm going to be talking about how I build up my details and specifically clothing textures on my figures. A lot of my figures are pretty abstracted or simplified, very generic, and the way I think about clothing is that clothing is kind of like an extension of how you see yourself, I think, or how you represent yourself, whether you're like super aware of your fashion or not. And so I like the idea of clothing, and so I like to sculpt these sort of nondescript drapery clothes, but it's not any particular clothes, it's just the idea of clothes. But anyway, so for today, I have one side that I've already started putting some wrinkles on, and one side that is still pretty plain from after I've blocked out this figure. And so to start off, lately to get better at sculpting the fabrics, I've been or intentionally studying wrinkles by like drawing it out beforehand. And then once I know where I'm going with once I know where the wrinkles are, I start to look at and think about it back in 3D, where I sort of already carved out where the line is in and something neat is, but I will make some big marks, and I think about where the limbs are like folding, and I realize, oh, that's going to be a big shape. And I like to also kind of draw out where my limbs are, because it's such a chunky figure, and sometimes I'm working with a lot of clay, and it's 15,000. But,
Do we need the mic?
yeah, it's just a little too, like,
We have
That's what it is. Is this better? Yeah. Does this work?
Just keep going.
Doesn't work? Oh.
You'll help some.
Anyway, so don't know how familiar all y'all are with sculpting in particular, but I like to think of it as just, to simplify it, it's just positive and negative ones. You're either adding something or you're taking it away. And so when I see a wrinkle on clothing, this is going to be positive. I'm adding to it, and when I see a shadow, that's where I'm taking it away. And I feel like, even if you're not necessarily sculpting clothing, if you're sculpting faces or plants or what have you, even if you have like a very complex shape, if you think about it in just terms of like, does it need to go out or in positive, or negative? Do I need to carve away or add on? It kind of helps break down complex forms that seem intimidating from afar.
I can see your picture, I don't know once again, but are you planning to duplicate that, or are you going to keep this as a figure and with the idea of the skeletal shape underneath? What are you thinking for this?
So this sketch was done. Oh wow!
First use of the mic, just to be patient.
Okay. Okay. So this sketch was done based off a picture of me replicating this pose. And so obviously it's my physique, right? Which is different from this stylized figure. And I use this as like a guideline, like you were mentioning. And I'm not interested in replicating myself and trying to make a portrait of my own body, but I'm interested in the physical information that I can get from observing my own clothing wrinkling to translate onto here. And so it won't be like a 1-to-1 ratio, but it helps me get a guideline. And so here I see that there's 2 folds coming out from under the arm where the fabric is like crunching under my arm. And so I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna have 2 big lines here. And these are lines that I will build a coil on top of, smooth over, and further refine. But there's another massive fold around the hip that is more like a loop. And so I know that this is gonna be a negative mark that I have to make. And I have some light wrinkles over here. Probably won't get to those for a while. And I need some really deep wrinkles around the knee because there's a lot of fabric holding together. So I kind of draw that out. And this helps me I guess the drawing part helps me not get too stuck on what I think the wrinkle is in my head. I feel like I did that for a while where I did a lot, just kind of went by feel. But I feel like this helps me get an even better sense of creating weights and believability that this is a physical person taking up space that like has gravity acting upon their body and their clothes. So yeah. And around my ankle, there's more wrinkles, but this person has like really chunky wrinkles. So, and I'm nowhere near what this drawing, but yeah. Oh, and of course the arm. There's some parts here. There's a fold that I need to build right there. And of course these wrinkles around the elbow. Yeah. And as we sort of go around and everyone else cares about their work, I will be building off of these, I guess, this little diagram that I just made for myself. And I guess when it goes around again, I will further explain how I shape based on this guideline. Anyway, Chance, you want the mic? Can you still hear even with this?
Yeah.
Great. That's the goal. Let's get started. Okay. My name is Chance. I've been here for a year and a half. Learning a lot. And today I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit about my hand building process, what I like to consider when making forms, and I really like texture and color, so my thoughts about how to do that. And I'll do a little, pretty basic, but a little demonstration along the way of Scribito, just in case it's new to you. But we'll get to see together how it goes on a surface that I didn't smooth out first. It's still lumpy, so we're in this ride together. And yeah, so this is something that obviously I have started making already, and I just added this a little while ago to have something to work off of. That white bowl there is one of mine, so I tend to make bigger things as part of what I like to do. Very interested in the marks that my hands make, so the natural patterns that happen when I'm coiling around and around and around. I find it very meditative. It's sort of keeping a record of how I'm building the thing. So I really like that aspect of hand building. It's not about perfection for me. It's not even so much about the form, because it's really lumpy and it's not always usable. It doesn't always hold up to fire because it's not really what I'm trying to. I'm not trying to make it hold water or anything. I'm in the zone.
I'm just taking it as I'm feeling it. But then I do have some other things that are not as organic and lumpy. Just they're all kind of lumpy. But there's one that's shaped like this. It's also there. It's got a really skinny stab. Yeah, that one's also me. So that's more of a demonstration of the mark making that I like to do, the application of color, the sgraffito, and that kind of thing. I have another over there that is raccoon, and it's really shiny, and it's also hand built in the same kind of circular way. And I really just like how a simple process like raccoon can still pick up the marks that my hands are making. So that's another example there. So this is lumpy, and I like lumpy things. And I have gone ahead and put a few layers of underglaze in little swaths on both sides. And one side I have also put a layer of wax. Just this liquid wax you can get from Armadillo or anywhere. Having a time trying to figure out which side, which I think this is the wax side. So the reason, if you're not familiar, the reason I put a layer of wax over this first layer of underglaze is because I'm going to carve in, and then I want to put another color in the carving, so the wax resists the places that I'm trying to put it on. So it won't color, the second color won't go on that and mix with it. I want to keep the lines clean. So the layer of wax, and that helps to create a barrier. I don't know if that has a different other name besides sgraffito. Is that something else? Am I doing two processes? I don't know.
Mishma.
Mishima, yeah. So I get them confused, but I like to play around with that, with both things. So I'm going to be using just some cool field guides of flowers. I don't know. It seems like it's going to be kind of a pot-based thing, so I might as well be really self-referential and put some flowers on it. And see what happens. So as everyone else is talking, I'll be sketching out and then carving in. I don't really do a lot of like stenciling on or anything. I just go freehand with it, and whatever happens, happens. This will be especially interesting because it's not a flat smooth surface, so we're going to see what happens. And then I'll also be adding on and maybe changing the shape of this to kind of come in and come out. It'll do something. I'm not sure what it's going to do, but we just give me do that and then just okay. Hello, my name is Jamie. I've been here for about 5 months, and this will be my last month. While I've been here, I've been doing a lot of pottery and glaze exploration. I really like to do wax resist stuff, Mishima stuff, and I make all of my own glazes as you see before me. I'm going to pass these around, but these are some pieces I've made over the years and are going to represent kind of exactly what I'm doing today. So just so that you can kind of reference it and get the idea, but I'm going to be doing water etching with resists and Mishima, and the kind of like Mishima I'm going to be doing is in a intaglio printmaking style, so I think there's several different ways you can do it during when the work is green versus once it's this versus whatever. This is kind of the way I do it. I went ahead and prepped this one side with a layer of glaze, and this will be something that I do Mishima on, so this will kind of maybe be shown in the second part. And for the other side, I'm going to do some resist, but instead of using wax, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with how it works, others are not, but you can, like, chances using it to, like, lay on the wax, to let it dry, and do stuff to it, it resists. Glaze, but something I like to use is just, like, contact paper, and I cut it up and use it as stencils, and I tend not to draw very much, but I really like cut out collage, so this kind of feels just like a different way to make a butterfly that feels like more akin to what I like to do. So to start, I took an underglaze pencil and on the raw fist side, I went ahead and just like put some drawings in. Most of them are going to go away, but when I use this screw tile glaze, sometimes the underglaze comes up from underneath and it just looks like it just adds a lot of depth to the piece. So I like to layer things a lot and kind of forget what I've done, and then by the time it goes into the kiln, I don't know what I've done anymore, and then I pull it out and I'm really excited, because when I used to be really controlled about it, I was like devastated every time something came out of the kiln, and then like a week later I loved it, but I kind of changed my process so that I'm not so emotion charged and kiln on it. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to be painting backwards so that y'all can see it, but that's kind of going to lend well to this style, which is just going to be painterly. I'm going to put my resist on it and then wipe it away so it has these really crisp lines. All of these glazes are the same base, and then they just have different mason stains and oxides. I have my warms, my pools, and my oxides, and then I have washes when I do the inlay.
What temperature will you be firing?
Oh, sorry, this is all mid-range. I like to fire to Chrome 5 with a 15-minute hold. If I go to Chrome 6, sometimes the colors from the mason stains burn out or get kind of weird. But at Chrome 5 with a 15-minute hold is my happy spot. But sometimes when I'm firing with all the other work, we go to Chrome 6 and I just let things happen. But there is quite a difference in that range. And then this is a dark brown stoneware from standard clay that fires, I think all those pieces y'all are holding, it's that same clay. It fires really dark at the bottom, but all of it's very iron rich, but that iron doesn't tend to interfere with these glazes very much, which took me a while to find a glaze that doesn't, that the iron from the clay doesn't mess up. So some of my stencils I made are just kind of little flowers and butterflies, so I'm going to generally paint some of those flowers and butterflies. And sometimes I use other glazes that have completely different base recipes, just so that I can kind of experiment with the chemistry. All of these, basically, if I start to blend them because of the same base, are going to have, I'm just really mixing the colors because I'm not mixing any of the chemicals that are from the bases. But sometimes I'll introduce a new base just to kind of experiment with the colors or experiment with the chemicals and less with the colors. But for these glazes, because they're just mason stains, you can kind of see what color they're going to be. Like this is green, this is red, that's blue.
Is your clear glaze a pretty simple recipe, or?
Yeah, it's from the John Britt's mid-range book, and it's oh no, I'm just kidding. It's from Val Cushing's. It's like a satin matte. So it kind of depending if I'm firing Cone 5 or Cone 6, it's going to be a little bit more matte or a little bit more gloss. And all the pieces that are going around are these glazes, and in some firings they've been way more glossier than others. And they've been in different kilns and different cool down temperatures and kind of stuff I'm not really paying attention to, but could be. Okay, so I've painted this very like generic butterfly and flower,
Do you mind spitting it?
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay. So it's not super exact.
No, because I want it to look really loose and maybe, you know, a little watercolor. I don't want things to run together. I'm also going to do a swab of copper. The copper tends to act really weird and I like that.
Sorry, I may have missed it. So these aren't glazes you could clear over them? These are just
Correct.
glazes
These are
staying,
all
like
just-
slip or underglaze?
They're all a
or
satin matte base.
satin matte base.
So they kind of, they're more satin base. They're not like matte glazes. And so if I miss a spot, it's going to be the wrong clay. I'm also putting these on kind of thin for brush on because I like the clay texture to kind of come through and make it look a little bit more like rustic or weird or like worn down a little bit and not so solid. So I have my crisp butterfly, which is contact paper I got secondhand somewhere. And this is like, I used to do intaglio etching in college, and a lot of the techniques and materials and tools that I used in that I kind of brought over into my ceramic practice. And this is something we used in etching all the time. So I'm going to place this over my this butterfly, like so. And I'll do the same with actually, let me pull this a little bit different.
So that's bits.
This is just this, yes. I just added a little bit more glaze because I decided that rather than using my cutout flower, I wanted to use the negative piece. I save all my cutouts, then I put them in a box and I reuse them as much as I can, the negative and the pieces. So I tend to get a little warpy. I'm gonna face it to do this one.
What is the material for the stencils?
Contact paper, or like drawer lining paper. So it's like a vinyl on top, but it's very thin. Like it's not like the vinyl you would buy for the Cricut cutter, because I've used that in the past and on certain surfaces it works great, but if you're working with a curve, it doesn't want to bend that much. So I kind of put my layers like so, and while the next few artists are talking, I'm going to work on wiping away this glaze that's remaining, and then also prepping my other side with wax so that I can prep to it.
Can you all hear me? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Hi, I'm Raj. And currently for the last 5 to 6 months, I've been at, it's already been 6 months now. And I have been obsessing over spring forms. You can always see some pieces there, so always I put up pieces there and here, so if you guys want, you can. When I say obsessed, I mean obsessed, because when you see this, I see it, and not a pipe. It's what has been happening to me. Okay, I will try to give 2 demos, if time permits. One is, because I just couldn't finalize one, I'm just upset with both the things at the same time. So I have been also trying to replicate the effect of rust on my springs. So it actually started with just a coil and making some snakes out of them. And later it just grew on me. So I was saving these paper roll cylinders, which are usually the leftover ones. So I was just using them. And I just started putting some foils on it, and this is how it all started. So I'll just show you how I usually roll the foils and wrap them around these molds and then create different forms using it. So if you see there is one piece there that is also a wrapped piece which I try to make. Alright. So I generally prefer taking clay out from the bag itself. I don't wedge it. There are multiple reasons behind it. First of all, this venue is fast. Second is, my body temperature is quite high. So whenever I'm rolling out coils, there is a high possibility that the coils are going to crack because of the body heat. Right? So I just take a chunk. Okay, I can do it. There. Okay, another thing, this is a very interesting hack that one of our professors at college told us. I usually use a fishing wire to use it as a wire and not a metal one because this doesn't entangle, it doesn't hurt us, and it's much more easier to use. So, and this specific one I have been using last 3 years and nothing has happened to it. So it comes in very handy. So once I have my piece, I just create a small sausage out of it. Just to make sure that I even it out. And I start doing it. So usually when I was taught about coils, it was said that you have to start from the center and then kind of go outwards. But that doesn't work for me. So what I usually do is I use my right hand to start the coiling process, and then as soon as the coil becomes a little longish, I just use my left hand for this part to support it, and just use my right hand to give the pressure and take it up. So this is how I usually roll it. So sometimes by rolling the coils, it's so easy for us to get the folds right, and it doesn't get the right part. So what I usually do is, I don't always go straight. I move my right hand from outward to inward. Okay, I like to have a better Alright, so I know that because I'm just putting pressure on from my right hand, the left side is going to be a little thicker. So I usually rotate the coil like this and then start doing the same thing. So sometimes when you can see it's a little more flattened, you can always twist the coil like this slowly so that it comes back to a circular form.
So, excuse me, have you thought about using an extruder? Or
I have. So there are multiple reasons why I'm not using an extruder. First is I like making coils a lot. So it's like a therapy for me. Second, it's very hard to clean the extruder in this community space, right? You have to make it, and there are other people using different clays. So you have to clean it regularly, so I would rather prefer making one. So yesterday I was rolling a coil and it was almost the length of this, okay, it was not a single coil, it was 2 coils attached together, and I was trying to see how much I'm able to wrap it around the same mold. So I just cut the sides just to make sure that we don't have any bubbles in it. So usually the sides have these holes, so I just avoid it. Once I have the coil, I have this. So there are 2 different methods that I usually use to wrap it. One is if it's too long, then if I attach 2 coils together, then I can just wrap it around like this. But I can always go like this. But you can see if I want something which is this big, I need to have at least 2 cylinders filled with foils. So even if like yesterday when I was attaching 2 foils, they were like 4.5 feet long, and it was just half the cylinder. So it's too much work. Yeah, so again, I can't always work with foil, the same foil again, because it will start to crack. So I usually, while I'm rolling the foil, I sometimes just use either I spray a little bit of water on it, but not too much of water, because the same foil will just get stuck to the surface and it will not be the best. I usually just use a sponge which is just very lightly dipped in water. I just use it, put it like this, give it shape. I then, once I'm done with this, I then use a sponge so that it doesn't flatten out, and leave it like this, wrap it under plastic, or if I'm just working on it on the same day, put it under the lamp so that it dries a little. I hope I'm not doing all that. Okay.
You're fine.
All right. So I have this just like a cooking video. I have this ready, which is not yet leather hard, but it is just before leather hard. So what I generally do is, that's fine. I am clumsy. I take my pieces a lot. So what I generally do is I just take this out and just before leather hard so that it is able to hold its shape, and then I give it shape. And it can still be attached together. So, okay.
Okay, my name is Anna. I'm originally from Russia, and I started ceramic step in 2018. It was like after my first workshop, I became obsessed. Okay. Talking about obsession. And
Can you
so
go to the
now,
mic?
my work has I focus on 2 areas of work. So first is like layered vessels and objects. So some conductors, like this one, the inner part is growing from the outer part, and then blends again between with vessels. Yeah, here we have 2 characters, but they seem to be 2 different things, different texture, different shape. Similar. And also things like this is not finished. I made only 3 layers yet, and it's going to be formed. So they are not connected. One with the other. So you can see through all of them. How many? So there are 3 inside this one. So there are 3, and they're going to be formed. So and they actually covered with colored slip, which so once it is fired, the color didn't pop up yet, but it's going to be like yellow inside, then greenish, and then this gray. So I'm really interested in the negative space and the air which like goes through all this. So it's a Someone pass it out because it's still this fire. Yeah. So the second area of our work is more like solid objects, which started from functional pieces. I wanted them to be placed inside so that one can use them. But I wanted the clay to be exposed on the outside. So I wanted the glaze to flow around. And I also never wanted them to be like, though they're made on the wheel, I wanted them to be really like uneven and like full of movements. Yeah. Maybe good. So this one, you've got it on the wheel. Yeah, it's already on the wheel. And it's almost even not trim them because, yeah, the surface is pretty. So first I started with porcelain. So, but when I went go bigger, and also, it's just not only because I wanted to go bigger, because some places it work with porcelain. So I'm using it's called the white bear by Kentucky Margaret. I think you know this quite popular company that make glazes and clay. Also I use the black clay, so it's
That's black porcelain or just black clay?
no, it's just black clay, but it's very fine clay.
Gotcha.
And so the next step for me is I'm trying to do non-functional pieces, which going to be also like this style, this glaze running through, and I want to see how it gets rid of holes, so how it will interact with the small.
Is that coil built or just on a
No,
melter?
and maybe it's like solid, and then I scooped out the clay like that. And today I'm showing how I make actually something like this, like glaze. So the first step is I'm using this as a real brush pen. I find them really convenient to use because they are water-based, they don't mess with glazes. They have this, I was looking for this like brush tip because you can make really clean and really thick lines and quite quickly and easily. And also I like that this, so I use usually something like bright color so I can see what is actually on the lines. And the gray one, which is really fun, I think that you can use it like an eraser because it's kind of erase. So I can define the lines and make them look more flow and natural.
So what is that you're using?
So
Is it a resist? Is it?
It's just the watercolor markers.
Uh-huh.
But they are really light, they don't mess around with these glazes. Because some markers, if you use them, the glaze will just.
Oh, is that just so you know where to paint your glazes? I don't understand the.
No,
what
I'm
the-
just, yeah, I'm just.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry,
I'm
just
sorry.
sketching.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to, yeah, maybe I skipped this step. So, like for example, this is it's not fired. It's just green layer. So I just fired them, then I wire set them, and after they dry, I first sketch in the lines. Just did now, and now I'm going to apply the wax to the napkin spaces.
The what, I'm sorry?
Wax.
The wax to the empty spaces.
Those napkin spaces, right?
Oh.
And after that, I'm going to glaze on top of this marker.
Oh.
So the pink is the marker.
Yeah, it's a marker. It's just the guidelines.
Cool. I didn't understand the process. Very cool.
These days,
she wants, so the light stuff is.
Yeah, can we pass the microphone back?
That's already marked on the
So she's doing, anything that's gonna be doing is gonna be done. So she's
So,
gonna
pick back up where I left off earlier. Oh yeah, feel free to move around as we like go through everyone's different demos. But so when I started about 40 minutes ago, this side was just flat, but now I've added wrinkles on top of the lines that I made. And I'm going to sort of explain a little more in detail how I do that. So here I have the back of this figure, and I want a fold to go down this way. And what I will do is I will get a coil of flint and just kind of stick it on there. And I think of it as shaping like a mountain range, and then the valleys is how I like to simplify it for myself. But because if I just put on coils, for the longest time why sculpting fabric seems so hard to me was I would draw the little squiggles and make the coils, and then it looked really unfinished and not clothing-like, and I was like, how do I get that flow? And so I have this, so what I do now is I have this coil, and this fold, I know I want it to be very shallow. I want it to be a very, like, almost not even bare mountain, but I want you to feel that there's some fabric draping very lightly over this one. And so I will smooth this out both ways. Imagine that this is one side of the ridge, and then this another. But this is still too pronounced for where this is, because this is fabric that's stretching across the back. It's not bunching up into deep folds. And so it needs to be really shallow. And you can sort of see examples of it on that one biscuit over there. I left that one out there so you can see the details up close. So my coil is almost kind of gone now. And as you can see, I want this fold to be going kind of this way, so I smooth it down with my thumb and I keep shaping it until I get the fold I want. And yeah. And so I'm going to leave that there for now. So that's a very shallow fold. But what I do for deep folds, like the ones in your armpit where your arm folds against your body, your clothes almost always make deep folds where your limbs are like coming together. And so here, instead of just adding the coil, I know that I need to subtract. So I will get a tool, and I have a little loop drawn out here. I will take out a chunk, and then, like I was saying earlier, I'm just thinking in terms of adding and subtracting positive and negative marks. And so I have the groove of that fold, and now I want to make it feel more flowy, to make it feel more natural, though like the bunch of clay that outlines that. And so I have another coil of clay, and I will add it on there. And I will do the same thing as earlier, except this time I won't smooth it out as much. I've never tried to do this while not looking at it. So, I don't know, you tell me, but like,
Is he solid right now?
oh yeah. This is like an active weightlifting exercise. Every time I get up, I like have to like get into like a squat position and like lift with my back. That one is hard, but yeah. And so I'm smoothing up this coil on both sides into that like little soft mountain range flow where I needed to. And now I sort of have the makings of arm folds, and where before I had just a flat expanse. And so so that's what I've been doing and will continue to do. The one other thing was the edge of clothing. There's not a lot of edges here because I'm not trying to fix any particular clothing, but I do still want a neckline. And so I've done a little line, and this is quite easy. I will build up some coils, or I will put on a coil. And have it on. And
How long does it generally take you to make one of these guys?
one of these takes me like a month. And the reason is because I don't necessarily work on it every day. And so I also have to wait for the clay to set. So I will get like 2 bags full of clay, lay it down, and spend like a good couple days just pounding it into shape. And then maybe like a week and a half later I can start doing coily stuff and difficult details and whatnot. And then I have like, it takes me like a week to hollow it. Because I will cut it up into so many pieces to get it empty that it takes me a while.
Do you have a specific approach of like where you cut it first to like, yeah, like say like a wing kind of break down like the films itself?
Yes. That is something that I talked about, I think, during last year's GACA demo, when I was talking exclusively about hollowing. But to give you like a quick crash course, when you're hollowing a complex form, I tend to focus on figuring out where the biggest amount of clay I need to remove is. And for me, most of the time it's the torso into the legs. That sort of this area. And then the second thing I need to keep in mind is how big my tools are and how far I can actually reach to a certain form. And the third thing is gravity. And if I cut this in half, that could work, but gravity will not like, or I will not like gravity when I try to put that together. Those slides just want to. But if I cut horizontally, then when I piece it back together, gravity's on my side in letting those pieces rejoin. And this is not an absolute rule, but one that I was taught and works pretty well for me. It's not, I mean, sometimes you can really convince play to do crazy things. So, yeah, that is how I figure out what to follow.
How has your work changed in the last year?
In the last year, it's gotten a little larger and smaller. You can't tell by that first? Yes. So like larger and smaller. I think I've been trying to push both ends of what I can do. And I've also been incorporating more letter forms directly into the human body. Like that one over there, which I haven't pulled out just because it's green and kind of fragile right now. But sort of combining the words from different series into this stick. I think it's the most major change in my work. Yeah.
When's the next show?
December. Far away. Winter. Yeah, more.
How wet or dry is it when you start to hollow it out?
I would wait until, actually this is a pretty good consistency right now. It's firm, but it's not so firm that when I
put it back together, I will have to like do a lot of slither and scoring to really get those hard edges. Also because you don't want to wait till it's too hard, because when you put it, as you're hollowing, those pieces are just sitting out and those edges are drying unless you cut the cracks. And so it takes a lot of convincing to get them to roll back together. So I don't know, motherhood is such a big word sometimes. But if you want to come poke it right now, this is a good color.
Do you do more than one at a time? Like, do you work on a couple of like figures at the same time? No.
I can't multitask like that. I can make a.
One's getting cold or softer, and the other one's hardening up.
Yeah, that's like a nightmare.
Oh.
I try to focus on one thing. And now I've made a neckline on this person. And the only difference is that I haven't softened out this edge so that it makes it a sharp line. Yeah, that's all I have to say at this stage. Unless there are more questions. Cool. Okay. So I have carved into this side using some flower reference. The thistle and the milkweed, I think. Really beautiful garbage flowers. And I love them. So, I try to make some amount of textural decisions while I'm doing the carving itself. So, dandelion, try to make it look fluffy using a variety of tools, just sort of figuring it out. I kind of like how it looks on the wavy, bumpy, a little bit more rustic, I guess. So, because there's wax, I can just use another color and try to, let's see if I can throw this color. Just like do this, I'm just going to do one color, I think. So, I think I'm supposed to do a couple of layers of this, and I'll just fill in the marks, basically. And it's okay if I don't stay within the lines because there's wax, so it'll just burn off. If I was being really delicate with it, I could like go in and like try to sponge and stuff, but I'm not.
You won't even do that. You'll just.
I'm not gonna. No, I don't have the patience for that. So
I'll slide off.
yeah, it'll just. Yeah, it's pretty good. There's also I've got some latex to try to do some resist stuff that I haven't tried it yet, but if anybody has tried it, let me know how it goes and what I should do, because I've only ever used wax because you can carve into it, and I really like the carving part of it, being able to do a lot of different textures. I have a bunch of, these like really official kind of tools that you can get in places, but also just like, I'll just go at it with like a rib sometimes and like try to make some funky stuff happen, just to see what happens if like blazes get caught in there, or light does stuff, it's fun. It's fun. I haven't added any more coils, so you haven't seen me do that yet, but I'll do that now. Any questions so far? Or anything?
I'm curious about not wiping the glaze off. So does it run off? Do you end up with some of that glaze at the bottom, or does it burn off?
It sort of just dries up, and when you get it out of the bisque, you can sort of brush it away.
Oh, okay.
As the wax melts, it doesn't then stick on anymore. I don't know at what. I guess the wax melts at a pretty low temperature. If I did the underglaze very thick, it might run, but I don't usually do it too thick.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So obviously the pot in the middle doesn't have anything on it yet.
Nothing
So
yet.
what's the plan versus underglaze versus
Yeah.
glaze?
Yeah, so that one, I want to highlight the texture, the fingerprints, the handprints. So I'm thinking just a simple wash of color, something that can get into the nooks and crannies, thin enough that it can sort of soak in, but not so thin that it just looks like a watercolor or something on top of it. So I don't know yet, but that's the idea. Suggestions. Yeah. Alright.
Like an antique, kind of like an antique.
Yeah, it's sort of like I would be open to like putting something and like rubbing it away in some places too. Just want to get the texture in there. Yeah. So I was working on putting some glaze, some wax on my glaze, and then also I went in and painted in some glaze resist in addition to my sticker resist. And I did a layer of red, circles, and then wiped it away, and then I did a layer of blue tile, and then wiped that away, and then also carved into it. I like to use, for my wax, I use the Aftosa green wax, because I look at it's green and I can see it very clearly, and it also helps create those layers so that I kind of lose track of what I'm doing a little bit. And I like to water it down because it dries faster on the piece, and it makes it easier for me to carve in without like chunks breaking off. But it can also drip a little bit more. I like to embrace those drips, but you just kind of have to find the right happy medium, because sometimes if it's watered down, it just absorbs really fast and it never drips, and it's like really perfect, but I never measure it out, I just eyeball it. So, and then I like to use like the thinnest kind of ball, or carving, not carving tool, like pointy tool, but that has a little ball on the end, and that ball helps create a better recess that like, and pulls the gunk out rather than just like a classic pointy tool. But you can experiment with your favorite pointy tools. So I'm gonna go ahead with this side just because it's a little bit bigger. I carved just a design to it. I'm going to use my red wash to fill in. When I first started doing this process, I used glaze, and glaze is just too thick. Or the glaze I was using was just too thick, and if I watered it down, it lost too much of its color or effect. So I started making a wash that's just 50-50 stain or oxide with Residency borate, and that Residency borate helps create a little bit of a sheen to it too. It just helps it stick a little better than if it was just mason stain in water. But I do water it down quite a bit, way more than glaze.
So there's layers of glaze,
Yes.
then wax.
Yes.
Then you use the ball thing to carve into the wax, but you obviously have to be sensitive about your pressure because
Yes.
you're just trying to go through the wax.
And it's okay if you go through the glaze too.
Because you're going to fill it in.
Because it fills in, and that's what the Residency borate and the wash is good for. I think you can find different wash recipes out there. This one is, I don't even know where I learned it, just one I have, but I really like the way it works with mason stains and oxides. And I'll show you, I'm also going to be using a copper wash and an iron wash, and they all sit differently in different glazes. So like here, this is a copper wash Mishima, and it drips and it kind of glows, which I really love. But then it's next to the red, which does not drip, and it almost like fades out a little bit, like you've erased it a little bit. And then this is iron on top of a purple glaze that I used non-watered down wax, so huge chunks of the wax came out, which let more iron sit in there, which I really liked. So I will, also if you see I'm on top of a tablet that I made, I got really bummed out when I realized how much glaze I was using when I was just glazing on surfaces, and so I made this catch tray, and I'll eventually glaze it, and then I'll just have this cool huge tile of a million glazes that I've made. I like to use these fan brushes for this part of the process, just because it kind of covers it in. I'm kind of thinking about it like intaglio, where I'm just like putting in swabs of ink into the line, and then I'm going to be wiping it away. So I'm trying to use tools that mimic other tools. Which I realize I have not explained what intaglio brushing is to those that don't know, but maybe feel rid of here. So I'm really just kind of like pushing it in and doing little sort of swirls. And I'm okay to go over my wax line because I'm going to wipe it off. And when I do this with iron versus copper versus mason stained, they kind of paint on differently too, and try to sneak be conscious just with how they fill in and how I plan to wipe it away. So now I'll go in with my sponge. And just wipe it. Good. And I know y'all can't see this super close up, but because I wiped it with this sponge on the wax, there's these droplets. And if I leave them here, they'll show up in the glazing. So if there's glaze or any washes or anything sitting on top of the wax, it'll still show up in the glazing most of the time. So sometimes I really like these droplets because it adds just another layer, another texture, another little moment of like, I can also kind of control where I put them. I can like dab them and then kind of move them around into other sections, which can kind of help create some depth too. So that's that one side. And for this other side, I'll go with my copper and iron. For my copper and iron, I like to use a little bit more of like classic paintbrush, because this copper, I don't have mixed as water, it's a little bit more glaze-like, but it tends to move weird, so I like to keep it as tight as possible. And I'm just putting it in these lines that I made. It's going to be sitting on top of a rutile glaze, so the copper will be interacting with the rutile, which is, I think, one reason it gets kind of back below. Versus that if it was on one of these other glazes that don't have another oxide in it, it might be a little bit more calm.
So do you have an overall design in mind when you start these?
No. I'm thinking, I kind of piece it together with the cutouts or imagery I have in mind, and this has kind of come a little garden with angels in it. And so each design layer I have on top of that is going to just kind of create that picture a little bit more. I think for the background I'll do a bunch of different greens stippled, and maybe I'll kind of like grass or something, but vague grass. So I'll leave that, and then I'll bring in my iron. Iron is probably my favorite. The iron wash is my favorite to use because it, when it's interacting with these different glazes, it does so many different things with the different colors. And it like burns things out, and it's kind of like a color bully, but also beautiful mixtures. I also work quite messy because I kind of like to leave a trace of what I've done, and iron stains really easily, and so I like to kind of see that iron has touched the surface. So now I'll wipe away again, and I could have wiped the copper and then wiped the iron, but I like to do them at the same time because sometimes I like to have the iron pull into the lines with the copper, and they'll have their own interaction. Great, and so that's pretty much done like that. So now I'm gonna pull off. Just kidding, I'm not gonna pull this off. I still want to do stuff up. The thing with these stickers is that if they come off, the glaze has coated the adhesive, and they're not going to go back on probably at all because they'll just kind of want to fall off again. So I pull it off and it's done. So I usually do that at the very end, but yeah.
Okay, so once I give this shape, I attach them. So whenever I need slip, I throw, or otherwise I don't. So I usually add some vinegar in my slip. I don't have a specific proportion, but I just add some. So for me, it's like whenever I open this box, it should smell like vinegar. If it does, this means it has enough. So I usually attach. So these are all attached. So I just use a hexagon, which is just cut into one shape of a knife, and just score and attach this slip, and then just attach these pieces together. If you can see that, the white one, can anyone guess how they will get? Yeah, you can. Any guesses?
Guess what?
Okay, so guess how I was able to wrap it in the same way.
Did you do it at the same time?
Okay, so there was a brief amount of time when I was teaching, and I used to tell my students that just don't come up with one option. Have multiple iterations, but it's not easy, guys, to come up with different. So this was a task that I gave myself, that when I was starting with this, I was just using this shape, but how can I have different shapes and different iterations for the same thing? Easy. So I made this out of it, which gives a little more movement to it, just a little edge to the same thing. Can I use more than 2 of these, or maybe a different shape, and then wrap it around? So the white one that I was showing you is basically 2 of these. So when you take this out, which I think might be a little difficult, and hence it is very handy because you can just make sure that all of this gets displayed, and you can have more paper rolls, or maybe ask your friends to get more. And I'm also clumsy.
Yeah.
So I just rotate it. This doesn't. No, it has not in the past. Or maybe my clay doesn't have it. So I just attach these pieces together, and I have the form. This has become a little more dry. I would like it to be, this is almost leather hard. I usually prefer to give it a shape when it is just before leather hard and a little more softer, how it was the other one. So it can still hold its shape, but I can still attach it properly and mold it into the form. So for almost 1.5 months, all my spring pieces were just lying at a this stage. As you can see, most of them are still, so because I didn't know what to do on the surface. Then I took one of the workshops with Shikha Joshi, where she was talking about white soil and how to use that on the surface, which sparked, or maybe it made me realize that I have been always gravitated towards something which is old. So I started experimenting with rust surfaces and how to create them on ceramics. So any guesses again, how do you think I was able to do something like this?
Upside down.
Sorry?
Like build it, what do you mean?
No, the surface.
Oh, the surface.
So this is upside down.
Yeah.
But how am I able to get the surface, which is rusty and bubbly and
Burn iron oxide.
okay? What else? So again, looking at me and how I do things, I don't plan things. Okay. So one day when I was just looking at this pile, I was like, what if I have some clay bodies which were darker clay bodies, and I started applying them as slips, and I could see that looks like rust, but it's actually not rust. It still is not there. So, and I had some glazes which were glossy, but which were not there as a rust. So I just, like an on-board, I started mixing a clay slip and already mixed glaze in different proportions. So I have done it with 2-3 glazes here, which are already at Dougherty. So if you can see this, so I usually use these bowls and I just divide them into different segments. So if you can see, I have written things as the glaze is to slip ratio. So it's either 1:1, 1:1.5, 1:2, 1:3, 1:4, and I just try things out, and luckily it has worked out. Yes. So there have been, so this is one yellow. This is a purple glaze, but it has come out green, so you can see. And so somebody said red on outside, right? So in these, if you see, there is a top which is a little metallic. So whenever I'm doing these tests with certain glazes, I just apply red iron oxide on top because I want that depth on them. So these basically are glaze plus this mix plus red iron oxide plus either underglazes on top to give that depth of rust.
Is that higher than fire?
Sorry? No, this is very fine. Actually 5.5. That works better. So at 5 with
do a lot of testing. You say you do a lot of testing. Like
with this, yes. So I usually test. So this was one of the things that was shared with Shikha in the workshop, where I always hated making tiles and doing things the way it should be done. So when I found out that this is another way, because I'm also using Community Studio, right? So I don't want to like make things flow, yeah. So I usually use these small pinch pots, and with the same glaze, and I really like the effect. So I try to put, this is with the same effect. One is with underglaze and one is with the glaze, and whichever one I like, I usually use that. So the same glaze with red oxide.
That's really cool.
So it's basically hit and trial, but it has been a hit. It has been working out. Yeah, that's all. Texture. Okay. Okay, so because I have been doing some experiments.
What's true? So yes. I like having that super shiny.
So Alejandra and I have been discussing a lot about it. In my college we had a course as well where we used to experiment a lot with materials, combining with other materials, like maybe using soda on clay, using vinegar on clay, how that reacts and gives a different surface. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'll just share it around. So in South India or South Asia, I would say, people use a powder which is basically an acidity reliever. So I just use that. It's called an eno, and just mix it with water, and it gives a very amazing effect. So
What is this called?
eno, yeah, it has some soda in it, and
Can you get it at the Asian market?
yes, at an Indian store you will.
I don't know where that is.
So yeah. All right, if you guys have any questions. Okay, so because anyways, I am also using just slips. So the bottom I just apply slip, no glaze. because it all comes together as something which is old, it has been working out. So I just apply on the bottom, just the slip, no glaze mix, and it doesn't stick.
Fair enough, I can't even do it.
Yeah, because it's all over the place. All right.
Okay, I applied some to the next space, not everywhere because it will take. So once again, so because I had some questions, so to clarify, so this pink color is it's just guidelines. It will burn out. It just I want to show myself when I want to apply the glazes. Right? So one more good thing about these brush pens is that they kind of hydrophobic also they avoid water. So when I apply wax resist, which is also water based, so I can see the line very clearly. Yeah, it helps a lot. And I wanted also to talk about the surface. So so to get this effect, which I like, I like terracotta on the white clay body. It's porcelain or either it's fine stoneware. I tried to color the porcelain and the stoneware different kinds, but it seems like the glaze will really bleed a lot inside into it, so it will get really shiny. And I wanted it to be the contrast between the tiny glaze and the nice surface. So it seems like if I put pigment into the terracotta, it's still most of the times it's still matte, and also the bleeding is really like a gradient, so it's a little darker on the edges, and then it gets lighter where the middle also in the empty space, so it makes like the volume of the curves
You're saying it enhances the curve?
Enhances the volume.
Yeah. So I tried a lot of different colorants into terracotta, so line passes.
At what stage do you add the
So I tried when it's gold, right?
right?
Gold, yeah. So I was looking for a long time. I was looking for the right brush for it because usually we use some because it's very thin the terracotta, so the brush usually leave the brush strokes. So this one really works well. So yes. So also because many people who use terracotta, they want their surface to be a little bit shiny, right? Satin. But I wanted it to be as matte as possible. So after I fired this, I sand it with fine sandpaper. So that and then even there are still small brush strokes, it's not done off. And also it makes the surface really matte and smooth with texture. So I wanted to show the way I siphon terracotta. So for my terracotta, I use M4 and for clay. Yes, M4. I'm sorry, M4 gold clay. Yeah, water and sodium silicate. So I put them in the right proportions in the bottle, plastic bottle. I shake them and then leave for some time. Then when I can see the layers, like now we cannot see them clearly because when I did taste it at home and when I was trying to do it here, it shakes a little bit. But you can see that on the bottom it's more dark, so the bigger particles are there and the thinner are there, and watery on the top. So I put it in the bottle, shake it a little bit, and then I make a hole where I decide that it's like the third cingulata changes to the particles.
That's super smart on the terracing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you guys have any last little round or?
physical credibility to my sculptures because they are so stylized. And so by giving them weight through the lens and through the clothing, it gives a sense that this is a body that has gravity acting upon it. And is a real person, even though they have far from real person proportions. Yeah. That's all I have to say for this event. Are there any last questions for you?
How do you typically finish them out? Do they get glazed or just the raw clay or?
I did raw clay for a while. I do a lot of underglaze. And right now I'm just trying to figure out if I want to change my mind. But yeah, mostly very dry matte. Is what I usually do.
How long have you been working on this one?
This one? I think I started a few weeks ago, but I've been stalling because I wanted to use it as a demo piece. And so I could have sculpted this all last week, but I was like heavily spritzing it to keep it alive for this week. But yeah, probably this week or next, I will try to follow it and finish it out.
For moisture control, do you just use plastic over it? Okay, you don't have another like box or something.
I have a lot of plastic. Like minimum 4 layers of like heavy wrapping around each limb. Yes.
Maybe you talked about it earlier, but did you study like the folds of clothes in a certain way? Like how did that come about?
I took pictures of myself.
And then drew them.
Or got other people to take pictures, and then I don't always draw it out like this, but sometimes I just have the photo open on my phone. Drawing does help me like sort of simplify it for myself first, but it is tedious drawing. But this is the view that I was working on today. I added some rounds here, so it's getting a little floppy because it's humid. So I'm gonna stop because I've had many things that just sort of flop over, and that's not quite the vibe I'm going for these days. So I'm trying to keep it upright a little bit. I just added some underglaze to the flowers and weeds here, and did a couple of layers. And I might, since I put it on kind of thick, I might try to clean up make it space a little bit. I guess I can use my hand for that. Yeah, and I'll do the same thing to the other side. Try to find some colors that will pop a little bit. Yeah. Any questions about anything? Pretty simple.
Do you see it getting much bigger or?
I mean, I don't know where the spirit moves me. But probably, I'm thinking a little bulbous thing. Maybe make it ridiculously unusable. That's usually my go-to.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So while we were walking and hanging out, I just put in a bunch of my greens layered on top of each other. And part of my way to think about how to design something is I circles and cross sections. So I made a cross section and I started with my dark green in one quadrant, then my light green, and then my bright green, and then layered them in different ways so that when it fires there's going to be a very subtle difference in the quadrants that I'm hoping will create a little bit of depth. And then on top of that I'm thinking, actually I could take off some of these stickers real quick. I'll do one per side. Star there. So they're gonna kind of, my hope is that they're gonna kind of melt into this background a little bit since there's so much going on. But to refine it further, I'm going to put another layer of wax maybe tomorrow, and then go in with this tighter
Mishima and maybe do some outlines or just do some more, bring back those like circles and cross sections and just kind of build it back up one more time.
Do you have a plan for the holes, or what are those for?
I built this thinking that it would be a basket, and then I never made the handles. And so maybe one day I'll make a handle to go with it. But for now, they're just my east and west. Yeah. Are there any questions?
That's cool.
I don't have anything more to share on the board, but I do have a couple of things to just share. You guys must already know about it, but just like that. First of all, when I said clay doesn't have memory, I want to take it back because it has been in my mind since then. What did you just say? So I blabber when I'm nervous. When I did my I started my clay journey, it wasn't a very smooth one. Sometimes when we go through a linear process of learning things a certain way, we sometimes feel that that is the only way it will work. But there was a workshop that I attended with this person who has been working with children. His name is K.V. Jinan. He is in India. Last 35 to 40 years, he has been working with and observing children from a distance. And his workshop, the first question that he asked us is, who taught you swimming? So I'll just ask the same question here. Who taught you swimming? Or cycling?
Parents, swimming.
Brother.
Parents.
Don't understand, go right in.
Yeah. So it's the water that teaches you swimming. It's the clay that teaches you how to work with it. It's the cycle that teaches you how to cycle. Nobody else can. So just follow the process.
Okay, so this is almost not the last one, but almost the last thing I do. So I apply glaze, and you see it's quite clear where the wax is, and it's really helpful for me because I don't apply just like one glaze or one layer, I apply several, and so I want to control the thickness and the lines. I still need to clean them. I use something like that. And I go through all these bubbles and to clean the line. So it really has this sense of like flow, natural flow, and it's really designed.
For the finishing? For the finishing?
Yeah. Yeah, then I try to see a little bit less. Yeah, so because still the pigments, the resin stains, they still flux the glaze a little bit, so if the glaze is for cone 6, certainly it may start to be overfired on this cone.
When did you learn how to throw? Her pieces are so thin, it's amazing. Oh, by the way, everybody, she's going to be in Clay Fest this year.
I was like, I was studying a lot of ceramic, like a lot of what I learned while I was living in Japan. But it's most of it also, it's just practice, you just try and like the clay teaches you how to deal with it. So I'm mostly, I would say, like self-learning because of the language barrier. So I could see, but I couldn't ask a lot of questions, I couldn't understand the explanations. So I just watched and it came. I think it's like how to make like a perfect cup, right? You throw 100, you make, you can do it like 100 or 200, and then like 101, it's gonna be like at least how you like it.
I have to
So for this one, I was just observing you use the watercolor to color it out, map out the design, and then use the wax resist. But I'm just curious that have you tried to get rid of that step and use colored water resist? So you still know where you're putting wax and glazing the part that's left.
Yeah, but I'm more into so to get right compositionally right lines for me. It's easier for me to draw them.
And for that piece, so in some of your pieces that are, layered and they have pieces within the piece, they're kind of fused together, and that one is not. After glaze firing, is that going to be also stuck, attached, or it's just going
No,
to
it shouldn't be because I don't apply any glazes or anything. That
So
will
they
break
were
my
made
work.
that way. They were made.
Yeah. So they all move around.
I see.
Yeah. And I'm planning to do more like if it works out, this one, I'm planning to do more things to happen inside it. So they're going to be like one in one room and the other is in different room, for example.
Okay.
So this different room. So I'm exploring a lot of like this relationship between the layers. Same here, I explore the relationship between the piece, which is like have these curves and stuff, and the glazes. So how it will go through this landscape.
Beautiful pieces, and I love your tiny